Hello, this is David Collins coming at you with the Draco Constellation. The three questions I have decided to ask are, which constellation is known as the Cat-Eye Nebula? 2. What is the brightest star in the Draco Constellation? And 3. What was Draco said to protect in the mythology around it? So, let's start by learning a little bit about the Draco Constellation. It is a circumpolar constellation, meaning it can be seen year-round. Very cool, if you ask me. In Stellarium, though, I found that it was easiest to find it in June, around 11 p.m. at night. So, in order to find the Draco Constellation, let's look for the Big Dipper's bowl, which is going to be right here. And then, from there, we are going to go east-northeast towards Vega. And then, right about here, is going to be the head of the dragon. And then, cool thing about Draco is that it wraps around Ursa Minor. So, now that we know how to find it, let's look at the 4 brightest stars in the Draco constellation. First, we got Gamma. It has a distance of 154.3 light years, away from us, obviously. The classification is K5, 3, or III. The evolutionary cycle is a red dwarf star, and the radial velocity is going to be a crisp negative 28.9 kilometers a second. Next, though, we have the Eta Draconis. It is the second brightest star in the Draco constellation. Its distance from us is 92.8 light years. It has a classification, which I am going to butcher as G8 IIIAB. The evolutionary cycle is a binary star, and it has a radial velocity of a negative 14.3 kilometers a second. Let's see, the third is going to be Beta Draconis, which is about 380.14 light years away from us, has a stellar classification of G2 LB, LL, or II, like I said, I'm going to butcher those. It is the elevation cycle, elevation cycle of a bright giant, or a supergiant star, and it has a radial velocity of negative 21 kilometers a second. And then we got Delta Draconis. Delta Draconis is the 4th brightest star in the constellation. It is 97.42 light years away, has a stellar classification of G9 III. The elevation cycle is giant star, and it is the only one out of the 4 that has a positive radial velocity of 24.8. So, let's move on to our cool slide with the space debris. The first one, known as the Cat-Eye Nebula, is NGC 653. It was discovered by William Herschel on February 15th, 1786, and it is a planetary nebula whose spectrum was investigated by English amateur astronomer William Huggins, demonstrating that planetary nebulae were gaseous and not stellar in nature. Very cool and very cool looking. Next is NGC 4125. It is an elliptical galaxy. In 2016, the telescope KAIT, K-A-I-T, discovered the supernova SN 2016 COJ in this galaxy. After the detection, it became brighter over the course of several days within the spectrum, indicating that it is a type of supernova. Very cool. Next, we have NGC 5866, also called the Spindle Galaxy, or Miser 102. It is a relatively bright galaxy in the constellation of Draco, obviously. Looks pretty cool, if you ask me. It was discovered by Pierre Mechine, or Charles Miser, in 1781. and was independently found by who else but William Herschel. It has a measured orbital velocity of its globular cluster system, implying that dark matter makes up about 34 plus or minus 45% of the mass within the effective radii. And last but certainly not least, we have NGC 5982, which is another elliptical galaxy. And it is located at a distance of 130 million light years from Earth, which, given its apparent dimensions, means that NGC 5982 is about 100,000 light years across. That's pretty far across. And, oddly enough, it was discovered by William Herschel. Now, my favorite part of this presentation: the mythology around the Draco Constellation. So, in Greek mythology, Draco was a dragon which was named, I believe it was Ladon, and was a fierce and fiery dragon. So, the mythology points to, gosh, I'm blanking on her name now, Hera, which was married to Zeus. At the wedding was given a tree that produced golden apples. And Hera tasked one of the other gods with protecting this and making sure that people wouldn't just willy-nilly come up to it when she planted it into her garden and just start plucking fruit. But, lo and behold, people started doing just that. So Hera had to take it into her own hands, and she implored the power and majesty of the Draco Constellation, also known as Ladon, where they had Hera task Ladon with protecting and kind of shooing people away from the golden apple tree. And eventually, a demigod came into the mix, where Ladon would eventually find her end. And inevitably, this demigod was known as Hercules. The combat ensued, and lo and behold, the victor was chosen, and in this case it was Hercules, where a note can be seen. If you look up to the right of this slide, you can see Hercules' foot on his head, showing that his victory was solemn and swift. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I know it ran a little far, and I hope you are able to answer all of the questions that I posed.